And our next scholar is Mikayla Villafuerte. Now, Mikayla is unsure where she wants to attend college, but she's engaged in the HG choir, theater, diversity club, D groups, and she enjoys to sing for her own church outside of school. Now, Mikayla is studying the influences that impact the development of Hispanic American adolescents. Now, please join me in welcoming Mikayla Villafuerte.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Ellen, for that lovely introduction. I'm Mikayla Villafuerte, and this is my topic. So, if you're a fan of magic or fantasy, then you probably recognize most, if not all, of the films that are up on the screen. There's The Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland, The Little Mermaid, and Enchanted. And as I'm looking at all four of these movies, I can trace a theme that connects them all together. And I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to think about what this theme could be. And while it is tempting to look at these movies and say, oh, well, they're all ginger, that's not exactly the theme that I had in mind. As I'm looking at all four of these movies, I can trace the idea of someone being taken out of a world that they're familiar with and being thrown into a world that is strange, new, and oftentimes uncomfortable. And all of these characters have to learn how to adapt to this new culture that they find themselves in. And while this may seem like a foreign experience to some of us in this room, for many minority groups in the US, this is a struggle that resonates especially heavy with them. And for 18.7% of the American population who identifies as Hispanic, this struggle is something that they resonate especially heavy with, and that is especially prominent to see. Now, this is the largest minority group in the US, and this 18.7% was found in the 2020 US Census. In 6 years from now, the US is going to conduct another census, and researchers estimate that over that 10-year gap, this number is going to have increased dramatically. And with the American population growing to be an extremely prominent part of the US and of our country, it's important to look at the struggles that they have so that we can learn to empathize with them and see what we can take away from their experiences. Now, I myself make up a part of this 18.7%. And growing up, there were many times where I struggled with balancing my Hispanic identity and my American identity and what that looked like in my own life. And so I decided to conduct research on this topic, and I compiled all of my credible information into a literature review, which not only validated the experiences and struggles that I've experienced, but also shed light on other aspects of Hispanic American adolescent development that I hadn't even considered prior. And as I'm going to be sharing some of the things that I found within my research, it's important to understand that even if you don't relate to this specific Hispanic American experience, the reality is everyone struggles with their identity. From the moment we're born, we're all battling to discover who we are and how we fit into the world around us. And so there's always going to be things that we can take away from looking at the development of other cultures and other people. And as we begin looking at Hispanic American adolescent development, it's important to answer a couple questions. The first of which being, who even shapes our development? And one of the most prominent people that shapes adolescent development is family. In my own life, my grandmother played a pivotal role in the development of my Hispanic culture. When my parents were working and I was young, she would stay with me, and she spent a lot of time sharing stories about her life in El Salvador, cooking me traditional El Salvadoran foods, singing me lullabies in Spanish. And there were a lot of things that she told me that I gained much knowledge about my Hispanic culture and heritage from. But I also learned a lot of other things, not only from what she told me, but also from the way that she behaved, the way that she acted towards other people, the way she spoke towards other people, even the way she treated and spoke to herself. And I learned the same things from observing the behaviors of my parents. And this goes to show that adolescents develop heavily through imitating the behaviors of figures of authority in their life. And while I said before that this is prominently family, it can also extend to other figures of authority, like teachers, coaches, bosses, or even other family members that aren't parents. And as I'm looking around this room, I see a lot of adults in here, and I assure you that even if you may not have children of your own, there are adolescents in your life who are looking towards you as an example of what to do and what not to do. And that comes with the challenge that whether you want to admit it or not, you're being imitated. And as such, you're responsible for living a life that emulates values that you want to see in the future of our country. And it also comes with the responsibility of creating an environment where these adolescents are able to develop freely and grow and learn more about themselves and other cultures. Another question that's important to answer as we're looking at Hispanic American adolescent development is what aspects of culture do we retain? And to understand and go ahead answering this question, we first need to know, well, what does culture even mean? And culture can be said to be comprised of two main parts. You have your cultural values and you have your cultural practices. And both of these aspects make up culture. But for many Hispanic American adolescents, they find themselves in a very hard place because oftentimes Hispanic culture and American culture don't mix. For example, Hispanic culture tends to value family and interdependence very heavily, while American culture tends to value independence and individuality. And a common Hispanic practice is speaking Spanish, while a common American practice is speaking English. So in these two aspects, it's very evident that these cultures are clashing. And that's why Hispanic American adolescent development has so much nuance to it. Because oftentimes it's extremely difficult for these adolescents to find equal footing in both aspects of their identity. And that's why it is once again so important for them to have figures of authority that they can look to as examples of what values and practices to emulate in their own life. For Hispanic Americans, they may look to their family as examples of what Hispanic values and practices to keep and retain in their own life. On the other hand, as they're developing and growing more independent from their family, they may be able to look to other examples such as teachers, coaches, or bosses as examples of what American values and practices to emulate in their life. And as we're understanding and looking at this idea of imitation and how heavily critical it is for adolescents to have good figures of authority in their life to look to as examples, that comes with a challenge to all of us. That even if you don't relate to the specific Hispanic American experiences that I shared, it comes with the fact that we all are responsible for being someone who's worth imitating. Because even if you don't relate to these experiences, you're making up aspects of American culture that other people are looking towards and learning from and growing from and imitating. And that comes with the challenge to live out values and practices that you want to see in the future of our country, because I promise you that you will. And as I'm continuing looking at this idea of imitation and coming to the realization that Hispanic American adolescent development is requiring future research in many different aspects, I'm hoping in the future to look towards the roles of teachers and friends in the development of American culture for Hispanic American adolescents and what that looks like for the future of our country. Thank you for your time.